Okay, so now we're going to talk about the second pipetting wizard that we have, and that is concentration normalization. Okay, so first off, we need to start by adding our labware to the bench. So here we go. So let's say our samples are in a 96 well plate, and our dilution buffer in this case will be in a 50ml Falcon tube. Okay, so we add those to the bench. And again, these are still empty, so we need to fill them with reagent. So if we add our dilution buffer to the Falcon tube, and we'll keep it with a generic buffer type. There we go. Because this is concentration normalization, the auto calculation actually doesn't work here. So we need to tell it how much is in there. So I'm just going to fill that tube right to the top with 50 mils of buffer. Okay. Now the samples in the microplate, I could individually tell the system what is in each well, or I can actually cut and paste that from an Excel spreadsheet, which is what I'll do. So if I import reagents at the start, okay, I can paste from a clipboard. Okay, so here's an Excel spreadsheet that I prepared earlier. The format of which is you've got your well positions, the name of your samples, concentrations and units, the volume that's in there, and a flag to say that it's a sample rather than a reagent. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that information, copy, go back to OneLab, paste it in there, import content. Now I can review that information here. I'm happy with it. I can fill that labware. Okay, and there it is. Okay, so now I've got my reagents, I've got my samples, I can normalize them. So concentration normalization. Okay, I'm presented with two choices at the beginning. So the first one is I can do the normalization in what's known as a fixed volume. So I can take an aliquot of each one of these samples out into a second microplate and dilute them in that second microplate to a fixed known concentration, normalize them. Okay, or the alternative is I can do it using variable volumes in source, which means basically I will add dilution buffer into the samples in this microplate to bring them all to the same volume, so normalize that concentration. That's what I'm going to do in this case. So I choose variable volumes, and I now have to tell it what samples to normalize. So I drag the plate over and I highlight the wells, so in this case all of them, and I save that selection. Okay, it's now asking me for the dilution buffer, so I drag and drop the Falcon tube over here. Okay, and because I chose variable volumes, it's not asking me for a destination, so I can just continue. Okay, so now it's asking me what my desired concentration is. So the way I set up the Excel spreadsheet was using a random number generator. So all of the concentrations in that plate are somewhere between 1 micromolar and 2 micromolar. So if I change the units, it now shows me some warnings about minimum possible concentrations, all that kind of thing. But I know that I actually want 0.5 micromolar. Okay. That's fine. Now I can review the way the liquid handling is done, so I can change all of those as I would do normally in a liquid handling step, but I'm just going to leave it as it is and save that. So now the wizard has created a single line item, which is all of the steps required to normalize all of these samples to 0.5 micromolar. There you go.